So a short update. I'm rearranging the room a little bit. Also prepared a new hookah. By the way, it seems that even a tiny bit of Nero's ruins it, but only if it started with it. I cannot replace just replenish part of the tobacco in the head, or just add more charcoals, as I've done all my life. When I smoke hookahs, and it's customary to do so, even though many people don't do it for all sorts of reasons that are not my reason. But cheap people. Cheap people do it. Cheap people. But I cannot do it because when I smoke, a certain amount reaches both the water and the tobacco, and this amount is enough to completely change the way that the hookah behaves. Completely, I tried it several times, and it's kind of it's statistically significant, strongly significant. But so you could, but if it was just if it was purely physical and not symbolic to some extent, I should have feel it towards the end of the original head, and I don't. So the news know that they were accumulating and they don't do the effect. But if you start the head with them already there, you immediately feel it. Or if you place it when you prepare the head, I've done until I started to use gloves a couple of days ago, which dramatically improved the thing. So we ran to so first of all, I removed the Union Jack and the Stars and Stripes, and this should improve the situation in the United States and England to some extent. I really hope they will not choose the path of the Israelis. That in Israel, every time if they get any kind of concession or from those that they are in conflict with, or that they see them as their enemies, they say, it's only receive one interpretation, which means that the robot is now subjected to our will. He was resetted or is terrified. So now we can do to him whatever we want. So it's time to press the hardest on the robot, because now we can totally crush him. It's the only interpretation. So don't be that stupid. Just don't. The robot is not crushed and is not resetted. And if he cries to the camera, it's not because he's crushed, it's because sometimes you need to cry, even just for documentation. But the flag is still there and it could be placed again. But I kind of changed my focus right now. So by the ridiculous reaction to the Lasha scandal, Lasha and Andre scandal, I understood, not that I had any doubt, but so low, bro. Of course the Israelis saw that I'm going to, the really ridiculous people saw it this as that I will kind of hurt him or something like that, because that's one of their objectives, to get me presumably insane, so will hurt somebody and then get into jail and then will commit suicide and they can eat my body. Of course not. Of course not. But moreover, I'm not even going to take the news from him, using the reverse of what he's done. Not at all. This is stupid. It's so stupid. Why should I? Is it really worth explanation that that you do not? I'm a cherub. I'm not a prostitute. I do not deal with, with buttons or whatever you call it. Poor creatures that are certainly in the lowest level in the food chain. Because why else should you be in this shithole? And this boss Andre is not much in a much better situation. I see where his room is even more of a dump than the rest of the rooms. who are all these, like, I mean, it's so childish, like, but I mean, it's used tremendously, like, in YouTube, like, who are these C and D and F and T? I mean, T can be, you know, the drug, but maybe, I mean, you know, I like big boobs, so, I mean, if you speak about D, so I think, okay, it's probably, like, small, I mean, but impossible, but F is, I mean, kind of like, I mean, you are getting there, and G is, like, even better. But maybe it's just me, I mean, thinking about boobs too much, because I don't have sex, because, I mean, I'm not allowed to have sex in this country, I'm a slave. It's against the law for a titan to have sex with, that is not, unless it's mandated by the state, and it's like, it's an act of prostitution that, of course, is taxed tremendously by the state. So, no sex for a long, long time. So maybe I think about boobs, but maybe they're just people. Probably they're people, but it's so childish. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, like to I don't know, to be fanboys or fangirls of, like, all sorts of, like, authoritative figures within the Israeli, or, like, presumably other intelligence services. You know, C, I mean, is like, famously, I know, like, what's in the James Bond movies is called the M, I think, or something like that. Like, presumably the head of the intelligence, but I mean, the whole idea of, like, thinking about, you know, even, like, I mean, or occupy your mind with single individuals, who cares? I mean, it's about, like, cultures, I mean, not about single individuals, and this is true not only if you're a cherub, but it's true of, I mean, just, it's all this kind of, like, I mean, cult worship, like, of I mean, you know, like, it reminds you of, like, you know, of the military, of Israeli military, but I mean, in a broad sense, like, I mean, because in Israel everything is part of the, like, everything that is formal relates to the military. So I mean, again, you're not children, and you're not, like, you know, 18 years old recruits. I mean, CD, probably women, because I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, that I don't know why, but yes, I mean, I discussed that in other videos, that I mean, during that generation, both in Israel and in other places, there was a tremendous degradation. In Israel, it's easy to understand why, because, I mean, maybe I'll elaborate on that on different videos in which I still owe you, like, a discussion of the Israeli history, like a very short history of Israel. But in general, the elites until the 80s were formerly Ashkenazi Jews that were characterized in general by that they were unbelievably cruel, and that their intelligence and education level was above average, on average above average. I mean, it's not that everybody was, you know, Einstein, I mean, but yes, they had, like, I mean, some kind of advantage that was still true until the 80s. But during the 80s, this advantage, Israel lost that advantage because God killed all of them, all the smartesses. So, I mean, just the ones that are left were just, I mean, the people like my family that, I mean, they weren't like, they were small fish that they didn't eat. Because, I mean, the response is directly correlates with the T in the body. Like, I mean, so the small fish didn't eat much, so they were, I mean, they kind of, you know, they only, like, you know, like, I mean, completely lost their fertility, and completely lost of any kind, both females and males, the ability to have any kind of sex at all, and all sorts of other diseases that they carry to this day 40 years after death. I mean, it's quite a punishment, but I mean, still, I mean, these are like the lucky minority. I mean, the majority just died. They just I mean, went to hell, straight to hell, and mostly they were replaced by, I mean, let's speak about some other time. But I mean, you know what? I mean, you know who replaced them? No, I didn't mean to say Mizrahim. That's, I mean, it's all in your head. I mean, why should, I mean, if so, even if it was, I mean, so why that doesn't make, what's the difference between Ashkenazi and Mizrahi? I mean, it's, I mean, and it wasn't my intention. I intended to speak about, like, the waves of, like, forced, like, pedophiles and homosexuals, perverts, I mean, that that the United States and the USSR just flooded Israel with, to replenish their intelligence services. So these were the new elites, but they were, the scum of the earth in their homeland. That's why they were expelled. And they were somewhat less cool than the Ashkenazi perished elites, and tremendously less educated and intelligent. אין עוד זו מזרחים. Anyway, in that situation, yes, the males in the Shabak and the Mossad are, they are like, inanimate dolls, mostly. And this is true even for famous figures like what you think is the head of the Mossad and the Shabak, and that are dolls, just like the dolls that you see here, like taxidermies, all the way up taxidermies. Like in the past, in the first decades of Israel, it was a secret, who is the real head of the Shabak and the head of the Mossad. And at some time in doing history, people decided that the public deserved to know. So since then, every 4 years they kind of elect a puppet, and they say that this is the head of the Mossad and this is the head of the Shabak. And but of course, one of the issues is there is no real head of the Shabak and the Mossad because they are so distributed. They are barbarians. This is the world of colonial barbarian. They don't even have kingdoms. It's like a barbarian hordes. The closest thing that they have to kind of to head of the Shabak or head of the Mossad are kind of legendary figures, from Valeria, or I don't know, from the world of Conan the Barbarian, kind of ancient sorcerers that that are tremendously feared and revered and even loved in the pervert way. And they are very powerful inside the organization, but they do not run the organization in a way that like a CEO in a normal company, that belongs to our world and not the world of Dungeons and Dragons. So this C, the D, and F, in case it does not refer to capsize, they are a lot of legendary figures within the Israeli intelligence and other intelligence services, and that and they do not run the organization, because nobody runs the organization. It's this in Israel. It's Arably distributed, but they are feared, and and of course they have tremendous amount of tea in their body. They are deeply hybrids, and in the last 30 years, they became more females than as opposed to the past. And sometimes they come from the military because there is the issue of the female fighters. In the last generation, I spoke about it in the beginning of this war. Actually, I spoke about quite a bit about the issue of the caracals and other cats. Anyway, if you really want your heroes back after the attack of today, you don't think about Lasha or Andre. You if you really want to make it personal, and usually I almost never do it personal because it's below me, C, D, fuck. Who are these? Sluts, prostitutes. It's far below me, to even think about it. And it's frowned upon, both by the Cherub superiors and by God Himself, that the Father, that thinks that his children should spend their time with bigger goals than personal feuds. But sometimes you can have exception. There's always the question, so who is this C? But so supposedly who is D? Supposedly I want to take back, not from from the button, but from straight from C, the legendary C. But there is always the question, who is this C? I'm not sure. I know. Really, I'm not sure. But we can try. And change, because we have quite a bit of portraits actually. And if I can't use portraits, I can just use photographs from the internet. So let's try to figure out who is this legendary sea. This is so, I mean, God rescue me and my daughters. This is Jurassic Park. I mean, it's, I mean, I can't believe it's like, I mean, I feel I live like in a million years ago. Like, what is this place? What is this? What all these barbarians? Like, I mean,